Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast, and it's a special episode today as we preview the United Rugby Championship final that is happening on Saturday between the Stormers and Munster. We decided to record you a little episode just to specifically focus on the game, the matchups, and the storylines even, and some of the narrative going around in this match as well. So today I'm with Jared. Jared, how are you doing? You excited for this final this weekend?
Yeah, how's it, Thala? It's really, really exciting to have another one in South Africa and another South African team in the final. And I think it's quite spicy that this year it's also a North v South final again, but obviously not your Bulls making it, but a proper Northern Hemisphere side.
Yeah, and I think that actually adds more to the competition than, like you said, the previous final being a South African derby. Like, it's good to have these inter-country finals, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, in our time in Super Rugby, it was rare for an away team to win if they had to travel from one country to another, never mind one continent to another. But yeah, Munster has the opportunity to do something historical, and the Stormers have an opportunity to also be historical in getting two from two. I think it's going to be very interesting to do that. I'm trying to think now. I can only think of the Crusaders winning in Joburg.
Yeah.
How many other inter-country finals wins happened? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, but it's terrible that we can't think of these. but I don't think there was I don't think there was too many all in all. Even I think even some of the ones that like Australian sides came to New Zealand, they just lost as well. So maybe Eddie Jones's Brumbies, did they not do it in New Zealand over the Crusaders? Or was that in
that? Oh no, I think it was the other way around. I think all of the Brumbies wins were in Canberra, but Crusaders did still won. I want to say 2000. Oh, I might be making this up, but yeah, if my memory is correct, I can only think of maybe two, but maybe not that much more like out of country wins. So yeah, this is for Munster. This is a big challenge that they're trying to do on Saturday. But Jared, you were talking about this just before we recorded, and Munster has a bit of a reputation as being sort of the bad boys and the party poopers here because they've ruined a few parties in the last few months and have had an amazing away win record run in the last few games.
Yeah, they really, really have. I mean, I think it all started with sort of with the Sharks, or maybe the week before they played the Sharks when they played Glasgow. No, that wasn't Glasgow, but it sort of started with the Sharks where they drew with the Sharks and pretty much denied the Sharks Heineken Champions Cup rugby for next season. Then ended the Stormers streak in Cape Town. I've actually gone and got that the wrong way around, but they ended the Stormers streak, then drew with the Sharks, took them out of the Champions Cup, then went to Glasgow and ended their season and their unbeaten run at Scotstoun, and then went and ruined the party for Leinster as well. So yeah, the party poopers, the villains, they just keep rolling on, and you can see someone like Peter Manie. You either love him or hate him, and when he's playing against your team, you really hate him, and he's the leader of this side. He's the Darth Vader coming after all the Jedis.
And he does love. Oh, I think he loves being being portrayed as a villain. Yeah. And it seems like the Munster fans also love this. They seem to be reveling in this like bad boy reputation of killing or ruining people's seasons.
No, I think it's such a great addition to this year's tournament that we don't have like. You have a look at the Premiership this weekend. They're also playing a final. It's Saracens versus Sale Sharks, and it's the two teams that have been the best throughout the season. And it was pretty much the same last year. So I really think it's great for the URC that we, just because you make the playoffs doesn't mean you're going to win the title, which I think is really, really awesome. And it was pretty much the same last year as well.
Yeah, and I guess that does throw a bit of like unpredictability to these finals. But Chad, let's go into it and just sort of talk about Munster. And obviously, we probably have more South African listeners than we do any other listeners. So what's the quick dummies guide to Munster for a South African fan that hasn't been paying attention to them? Like, who are they good players? How do they play? And like, what can South African fans expect from them?
Yeah, I think the one word that sort of springs to mind with Munster is bastards, and like just their run of results recently, like they haven't had them easy. Like they beat Leinster by 1 point, they beat Glasgow by 9, they beat the Stormers also by 2 or 3 points. So yeah, they such a niggly side. We saw that with when they played the Stormers, where Manie and Dweber had a go at each other. And then there was one with the Sharks where there was a big scuffle, and Achia and Ox had a little meeting on the side while everything was unfolding. So yeah, that's their attitude is pretty much that. On defense, they are just resolute. They tackle their hearts out, and they'll just keep on defending. But equally on attack, they behave quite similarly. They like to keep the ball in possession. I think they've scored. I think they've scored the most tries in the tournaments from not from first phase possession. So they take it through numerous phases, hold on to the ball, break you down, and then they round it off with a try. So yeah, they've I think they've improved a hell of a lot in just this season, but also since Johan van Graan left. And I think a lot of what van Graan did laid the platforms for this successful season with Munster, and that there was quite a bit of tweaking that went on, but the platform was sort of laid. But yeah, they a very good line-out team. They a decent scrummaging team. I won't say they're fantastic, but they're decent. And yeah, they niggly. They don't give up, and they just stay in the fight. So yeah, quite interestingly, they also up there with the Stormers, like with the most offloads in games. So you'll see that quite often. That Achia is quite big with it. That he gets an offload away quite a bit. Peter Manie, we've mentioned him quite a bit already in this podcast, but he also gets quite a few offloads away. So does Burn. So yeah, their pack is very physical, very aggressive, attack the breakdown, big on lineouts, not fantastic scrummages, decent ones, but they are a hard team to crack. I'll round it off by saying that.
Yeah, I think also it's just interesting how much they enjoy having ball in hand. So that kind of plays into, I think, the clash of styles here, because the Stormers are obviously a counter-attacking team. They'll defend, they'll absorb, as we saw against Connacht. Connacht, I think, only had 40 tackles to make. And Stormers just absorbed. And then obviously when you let their back line get a bit of turnover ball, they just run for the hills. So it'll be very interesting to see how they get that going. And I think the turning point for me, Jared, was once they got Jean Klein, Achis Neyman, and then later Peter Manie and Tug Burn back into their team, the team looked a lot better, because it was kind of start of the season they were treading water. I mean, actually, they had a horrible start to the season. They lost, I think, to Dragons. And I was thinking, and I think most of us were thinking, geez, Munster's not going to make the top 8. Like, these guys are going to be playing Challenge Cup rugby, which is, I think, a disgrace if you're a Munster fan. And then they just started building results. I remember another match that might be a bit of a turning point, a smaller one, was they faced the Bulls in Thornton Park, and they completely owned the Bulls. Like, it wasn't even really close at the end. Like, they just completely dominated them in all facets in the collision. And I think they said, okay, this is the basis of our game plan. And then slowly but surely, they bring in like very talented backs like Shane Daly and Calvin Nash, brought them more into the game. Antoine Frischesman, he's a really big talent there at number 13. Malachi Fekitoa gives them some solidity at 12. and they started backing Jack Crowley, who looks like a really good 10. The Joe Carberry thing is a bit sad though. And yeah, just those things started coming together. And then once they got those big boys back, it gave them obviously a bit more strength in the set piece, but also just, like you said, that carrying threat and the ability of Snyman or Byrne or even Omani to throw an offload, like that gets the attack going.
No, exactly. I totally agree with you. I think a lot of the time we speak about a tight five and how good a team's tight five are. Munster's back five of their scrum are incredibly strong, and that's really where their strength is. Like I say, I don't want to throw shade at their front row because they're not bad players, but they're certainly not of the quality of Steven Kitsoff and Frans Malherbe. But they can definitely hold their own, and I think Stephen Archer's well into the latter parts of his career, and he also seemed to have like a second breath this at the end of the season, and he's been pretty damn hard to break down. He had a phenomenal game against Leinster, and I think he had quite a similar one against Glasgow as well. So yeah, I think you're spot on with that these players coming back at the right time and being available to them certainly turned their season around. And yeah, they've built very good combinations throughout the season. I mean, they've also got Ben Healy and Craig Casey coming off of the bench. I know both of them started the last match, but generally they come off the bench and they add something completely different in the latter stages of the game. Healy can dictate a game quite well for such a young player. So can Crowley. And Casey's just, I think the Three Red Kings call him a goblin, which I think is pretty accurate. He's just like a little buzzy little scrum off. He reminds me a bit like of Ricky January. He's got a bit of zip to him, a bit of attitude, and yeah, great to watch.
I think he's almost a smaller Dion Fourie in a weird way. Like very abrasive, very aggressive,
very much,
and puts his face in the wrong places most of the game.
Yeah, that's if Dion Fourie was a scrum off, he would be Craig Casey. That's exactly it.
No, he's an absolutely like brilliant player, and like you said, Jared, like they have options with their 9-10. You know, they probably with now Conor Murray being back fit, he'll probably start and he'll start with Crowley, and then off the bench you can put in Healy. Healy can play 15 as well. Casey will speed up the pace of the game as well. And it's actually crazy that they beat Munster without Conor Murray, Leinster. Without Agnes name. Leinster beat Munster. Munster beat Leinster, sorry. Without Murray and Snyman. There's a player now that I'm missing as well. But yeah, they beat with Fekitoa as well. And I think Daly. And that just shows how good they are. Like, I didn't really give them a chance with that game, especially just being like, it's going to be difficult to beat Leinster in your best days. Never mind if you're missing a few of your key players and you're doing all this away wins, like it has to run out somehow. But it hasn't. And yeah, I've learned now to not count out Munster in any circumstance.
Yeah, but I think we must remember it was it was a 5-game losing streak that they broke against Leinster to get over the line. So yeah, Leinster did have a understrength side, but there was still plenty of quality in that Leinster side to get them over the line, and they probably should have won it. I mean, they had Charlie Nata, I think, played one game for the All Blacks, but he's definitely an international quality centre. And they had him and they paired him up with Henshaw for that match. So you just look there. Harry Byrne, we constantly being told that he's the next Johnny Sexton, whatever, until Sam Prendergast came around. But there was definitely enough quality in that side to make for a decent game. I must say, I did have a feeling, I think I did say it on one of the podcasts, that Leinster season would be coming to an end. I called it a bit too soon with the Sharks, but I did say that I did call it a little bit too soon. The Sharks let me down, but thank God Munster came came up and knocked them out.
No, and it did. You were right, at least in terms of Leinster. They're going to get nothing from their finals or their knockout games in Dublin, which was very prescient of you. I think the only big player we haven't really mentioned from Munster is Gavin Coombes, who's actually, I think, in some ways, probably the kingpin that ties it all together for that back five, like you talked about. Like, he's a big line-out option that they have. He's great on the ground. He's usually near the top for their turnovers. Him and Tyke Byrne cause a lot of issues, even though they don't necessarily have like a classical fetcher seven. Like Alex Kenderlin is probably something close to that, but he plays off the bench. He's really good at, obviously he's a great ball carrier. He's great like in contact as well. Munster fans have been crying out for him to be more part of the Irish setup. And I think he's definitely, in some ways, that, and maybe like we can start talking about matchups. I think that Coombes Evan Roos matchup is going to be epic and probably worth the ticket money alone, because you've got a pretty much close to an all-round 8, and Roos is kind of getting there. He's played, I think, a really underrated role in the last 2 games with John Fourie not playing, the 80 minutes in either of the games. And he's become more of a ruck, a ruck operator and hitting rucks and forcing turnovers and causing a bit of a mess there. And it's going to be quite interesting to see how these 2 players operate. Rose is going to be more, going to be given more freedom now that John Fourie is probably going to be coming back the game this Saturday. And Coombes and I'm sure the whole Munster team will be targeting Rose to make sure that they can stop him getting going. Because if you can stop Rose from getting those big carries going, like that's a big way of stopping the momentum that the Stormers can get.
No, 100%. And I think there's a lot of similarities you can draw with Coombes and with and with Roos. Both of them are on the fringes of their respective international teams, and they have one guy ahead of them. With Leinster, with Ireland, it's sort of 2 with Jack Conan and Caelan Doris, and with South Africa, it's Jasper, and you can argue to a degree with Ulrich Loh, and Dwayne Vermeulen. So these guys are extremely talented. They're both excellent defensively and with ball in hand, and I think it was Worm Rugby that told me that one time that Roos reminds him of a Labrador, that you just you let them out on the field and they run mad, and they'll just carry on running, chasing the ball, and that's so I think Roos is definitely like that. He's always looking to get stuck into something, and Gavin Coombes is he doesn't give off the same energy, but he is relentlessly working throughout the game. It's such a basic stat to look at, but it's an easy way to see how much work one player is getting through is if you look at their tackles and their carries, and if they over 10 or 15 in one, and they still get closer to 10 in the other, it's a decent gauge that they've done a lot of work. And Coombes consistently hits over 15 in both of them. So he's like Roos. He's just constantly wants to get involved with the game. And I think I can't think that there's too many players from about 5 meters out from the line with that pick and go. I don't think there's too many players much better than him in the URC.
Yeah, and Jared, what other matchups are you looking forward to for Saturday?
Yeah, I think the centre battle is quite a nice one to look at, just purely because I think as combinations, they're the best centre combinations in the competition throughout the season. They've played well together. So Dan du Plessis and Ruanel versus Malachi and Antoine Frisch. I think there's quite there's a lot of likeliness in them. Frisch is maybe just a bit underrated, much like Dan du Plessis, but they've both had phenomenal seasons. and then you've sort of got the workhorses in Malachi and Ronald, who will do anything. They are very, very good defensively and will land those big shots. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I don't think Munster will go with the 10-12 that they started against Leinster with Vikitoa back. So I think that will be one of the standouts head-to-heads for me.
Yeah, and I think also another place where you can see the momentum of the game and where it goes, because if Vikitoa and Fresh can, impose themselves on the Stormers midfield and either, obviously defensively try to stop du Plessis and Nel from getting going, and an attack, get past them and put them under pressure, that's when there'll be a big change in the momentum of the game as well. So I can see that being a very big clash in the middle there. I think also there's so many places to look at, and I think this makes it such a big matchup here. But a big question for the Stormers, I think it sounds like Deon Fourie, he's been on all the training pictures, so seems pretty much certain that he's going to play on Saturday. Now the question is Marvin Orie going to play on Saturday? Because he was obviously injured in the quarterfinal game against the Bulls. Yeah. He wasn't available in the Connacht game. I haven't really heard anything about that. I don't know, Jared, if you have some info about that.
So I know right after the final, after the semi-final, Dobbo said that both players were pretty close to making it back, and Deon actually could have played the game against Connacht, but there was a risk that if he did, he could injure himself and be out for months and would have put his World Cup in doubt, kind of thing. So they didn't risk him, and I'm not too sure, but I think the situation with Marvin was pretty similar. That they had injuries that they could have pressed, and let's say they were playing a World Cup final that weekend, they would have been playing. But because it was a quarterfinal, semi-final, they took the risk. So I think both players will be back, and I think it's for this match. Those two guys are paramount to the Stormers. I think Munster will attack the breakdown massively, and you said they'll be marking Deon Fourie, making sure that his impact is limited. But I think Munster's contesting lineouts with Manie, Achia, Byrne, Coombes to a degree as well. The Marvin Orie returning there is so key for the Stormers if they just to make sure that they get the best out of their possession at the lineouts, because we saw it faltered quite a bit against Connacht.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Stormers Munster round robin game and just looking at some of the stats. No one had more than one turnover in the game, which is a clear sign that Deon Fourie didn't play that game, because he usually has like 2 or 3 to his name. The ones that got turnovers for the Stormers was Hachiva Daimani, Dan du Plessis, and Suleiman Hotzenberg. And the loose trio for the Stormers was Engelbrecht, Dixon, and Daimani. So already Roos and Fourie are added back to that team. On the Munster side, though, they can also counter that and say a certain Thalk Byrne didn't play for them in this game. So they're both bringing back some quality players into the game on Saturday. So that Orie, I think the Orie, you can say Orie versus Klein. I think they're a bit more closer to roll than Orie and Achia Snyman. That's going to be a big battle just to see, like, obviously the lineouts, like, as you said, Munster can launch off lineouts. Stormers are great with, their set piece plays as well. And of course, I think the Stormers scrum is a lot stronger than when it does have Marvin Orie in the team. Another big battle, I don't think we've mentioned though, Jared, is the Stormers scrum against the ground. As I said earlier, there's been some rain around in Cape Town, and if there's one Cape Townian that is absolutely pissed off that there's a final happening, it's probably the Cape Town's groundsman. The Cape Town Stadium is just about to be relaid, and it's going to be getting some synthetic grass, and it's going to be like state of the art after the season happens. But they're literally just waiting for this game to get past this game. And he must be absolutely like spitting mad about the rain, about having the match, about preparing the ground. Like even on some of the pictures, the Stormers had their captain's run today. You can see in some of the places that, it's already divvying up already.
And I mean, the funny thing is that they get in this grass and everything put in this new surface in, and Stephen bloody Kitsoff is leaving at the end of the season, so you won't even get to play on it as a Stormers man. I mean, you've got a full Springbok front row, and the ground is hamstringing you the whole time because it just isn't conducive for power scrummaging. So it's more getting it in, getting it out, and I think that's one thing that sort of plays into Munster's hand, that Kitsoff and Malherbe can't really turn on the full gas, get into second gear or third gear, because the ground just does not hold up. So you have to be very technically sharp, which both of them are, but the power just doesn't. The impact of the power in the scrum is just limited somewhat. So yeah, I think that's. I think that's a major battle that hopefully the Stormers can come up on tops with.
Yeah, it basically seems like, and this is what I sort of saw with the quarterfinal game and even the semi-final to an extent. The Stormers, basically their strategy with the scrums is, when we really need to, we will basically just muck up the ground to win a particular scrum penalty or to change the momentum. But if we go, full out in every scrum, we're not going to have much of a field to play on. So it seems like they sort of use those key moments, maybe to win a cheap penalty in front of the poles or to get out of their half, to go, okay, this is now the time for Kitsoff and Malherbe to really like engage and really get going. So I guess they'll try to use it.
The rest of the time, they just go full Yanni Duplessis and anchor in.
Just sit and just make sure you don't ruin as much of the ground as possible. That's probably their strategy there. Another, I think the final little or big battle, I think, to look out for is just a bit of a battle of youngsters, if you want to call it that, and really good finishers out there in the wing. Calvin Nash, I think, has been one of my favorite like emerging players from this URC, and I think he'll be probably marked up by Leland Zass at number 11. And obviously, Leland Zass was the top try scorer last season. We know how good he is with finishing opportunities, but he'll have his hands full with Nash defensively as well. He's a really elusive player. He's quite powerful as well. He gets himself to the end of the try line, as well, and he's really prominent with offloads. Like even he's someone that can sort of link up with his players. So I think that will also be quite a big battle between those two.
Yeah, I think so. I'm quite interested to see where Munster go with their wing selections, because I think Daly has been excellent as well, and Earls had an unbelievable game against Leinster when Nash was ruled out. So I'm interested to see if they go with Nash and Daly, or if they're going to split one of them and drop one of them to get Earls in the side. I mean, what a hell of a send-off it will be him as a Munster legend through and through, one club man. So that's the only thing that I can think of. But I think you're spot on with that. It's a great wing battle, and I think the one that we would be remiss not to mention is the one at Flyhalf with Manie Libbok going up against Jack Crowley.
No, that's obviously a battle of, maybe possible future number 10s for both of their countries as well. And I mean, Libbok has been the top point scorer. He's been absolutely fantastic this season. He's been really good and I think he picked himself up from, the last time he faced in this game against Munster. He was missing kicks. He didn't have a good game. And since then, he's really just shown sort of people that were starting to now speak out against him, saying maybe he doesn't have the BMT and all that sort of stuff. And he's been nailing pretty much everything. I mean, kick-wise, he's been, I think, pretty much flawless in the knockout games. And then we know how good he is in attack. And he is an absolute horror for defenders just coming back, and if he spots a gap, we know how good he is. Crowley, on the other hand, probably not as fast as Libbok is, but really, 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 an efficient player, I think, at 10. We know now from the end of the Munster Leinster game that he also has, the big balls, the big cojones to really just, slot a drop goal and to win a game in the last few minutes as well. Like, something like that, and especially when that happens to you relatively early in your career, can really set you up for the rest of your career, because you now have that confidence that when the game calls for it, you're able to do whatever's needed in order to win a game. So I think he's a very strong player himself, and the Munster backline has been. I mean, we know how good the Stormers backline is. It's very clear just from looking at the names. But the Munster backline is also really good, and is also quite an attacking force as well, as we talked about. Like they can get things going. Crowley does try to get his midfield and his wingers into play as well. Him with Haley, if it's Haley or if it's if Ben Healy plays at fullback, they both play off each other as like multiple playmakers. So I think Munster will be also not scared of not necessarily throwing the ball around, like without any sort of consequence, but they will, if there's an opportunity to take it, they will try to take it, and they will try to expose the Stormers offensively as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the drop goal there and Manie's BMT. I think if this game, I think this game is definitely going to be quite a tight one. So I think they could pretty much decide the matches off of the tee or with a winning moment like that. And like you say, Libbok's in fantastic form, back-to-back man of the matches, and Crowley's taken on the responsibility this season of he knocked Carberry out of the jersey, and then Healy knocked Carberry off of the bench. So for the two of them, they've had great seasons, and they'll be looking to round it off with the title. But I think Libbok, if Libbok plays this weekend like he played the last two matches, I think it's going to be a very difficult one for Munster to edge.
I think we've obviously started by trying to focus on Munster and then trying to obviously ensure that we look at that. But I think on the Stormers side, I mean, I think we've probably gone 30-odd minutes and haven't mentioned Damian Willemse, which is probably a record in talking about a Stormers game or Stormers related game.
Exactly.
And he is obviously just I hate this phrase because it's overused, but he is really that X factor type of player. That
Thala.
He really can create. I'm so sorry. I am trying to find another way to say it, but he is that something out of nothing type of player. And that's the brilliance of him. Like from, diving in improbable angles to causing a break to his kicking, bailing the Stormers out. Like you watch Stormers games, and especially when you watch them live, like, and that I've had the privilege of doing, like, there's something that says Damian Willemse is probably one of the best players, if not the best player on the park.
Do you know what I think's made him so much more important to the Stormers, or so much better play, is that he's learned when to try and influence the game and not constantly produce a match-winning moment. And like you said, we've spoken about half an hour and we haven't mentioned him. It's because we haven't needed to mention him. We don't need to say, yes, this Willemse is still trying to win the game by himself, and he's coming in ahead of Libbok at fly half and taking the ball to the line too often, not looking at the options around him. There was a great try against Connacht that him and Libbok and Willemse they dovetailed so nicely in phase play, and I'm trying to remember which try it was. I think it might have been Tiernesson's. No, it wasn't Tiernesson's one, but there was just such lovely attack between the two of them, and he's learned how to throw his stardust when it matters, and not just do it every single time. Like, not every play can be a try scoring play, and I think his aerial ability has gone up notches this season as well. So So yeah, that's where I think he's really improved for the Stormers. He's just been that guy that can add that little bit extra when it really matters, and then the rest of the time he is a normal squad member. Which it sounds bad, but he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't. Yeah, he does his job and then goes that little bit extra, maybe 3 times in a match instead of trying to do it 25 times in a match.
No, and that's what a world-class player actually does, that he doesn't have to, try everything and try to win the game in one play. Like in basketball, the NBA playoffs have been going on quite a bit. Like you sometimes have those players that like try to shoot themselves out of like a 10-point deficit in one shot, as if like that one shot can wipe away a deficit. And sometimes I think Damien was a bit guilty of that, especially when he was playing more fly half, to be like, okay, the team needs me. Let me try to do something that like causes a try from one phase, like deep in my 22. And he's slowly but surely put his game together that, okay, I don't need to do that. I actually need to just, get things going, play the phases, play the pattern. And then when I can, go for a run or put someone away or put a chip or whatever the case may be. And I think it's also just him trusting Libbok to, if he sees an opportunity, he'll do it. Or if he sees something and tells Manie, he'll also get that done as well. And trusting, just trusting, I think, all of his players. Like Ron Nell's also going to be really good with that. And he's obviously an efficient player. Dan du Plessis has become a key player for them and he's become really good. Like all the decision makers in the Stormers back each other and really trust each other's ability to really help them get through a tough situation. Like they know that Roos can like get gain line meters in contact. They know that Ajiva Daimani, if he gets the ball out wide, he'll be really good and skillful and get the ball back to the wing if needed. They know that the wings will be there if there's a cross kick or a long pass or something like that and get meters. They know that the midfield will either find the players that they need to, or if they need to, just track it up in the middle. So it works so well because everyone is just, communicating with everyone. And I don't think it's a surprise that both of these teams are in the final because they're probably close to the most well-coached teams in the competition now. Like we know how good the Stormers are. We know how great their defense is and Dobson, Norman Laker, Rito Hlongani, they have a lot of credit for how the Stormers are going in like the different aspects of their play. And Munster, I think with Roundtree and the coaching staff, they've been really good this season. They've really grown from where they were at the start of the season. You can see like things that they struggle with at the start and the improvement that they've made. I mean, that's obviously the reason why they've been really good. So even the battle of the coaches, I think that'll be, worth it as well, just to see the strategy because Munster's strategy, especially for that Leinster game, was absolutely brilliant with regards to not giving Leinster any launch attacks with their line-out ball, not giving Leinster any quick ball. And that is the two big things in the formula. And I'm sure for the Stormers game, they're going to be trying to negate any opportunities in counter-attacking. Or they actually probably will, if anything, try to kick it out just to slow the game down, not let the Stormers just break away and to, punish a bad kick or to punish a turnover that they get. And of course, as we said, they're going to be targeting Deon Fourie and having a sniper on him. Like I'm sure Deon Fourie and Achis Neyman are going to be well acquainted by the end of the game.
Yeah, and Jean Klein as well. Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think the Stormers maul and their launch plays from the lineouts are great, but it's just getting the ball to the fucking jumpers' hands that has been their problem, and getting it clean with these hands. And yeah, I'm saying that very quickly. And whoever has sorted his lineouts out, but like even against Connacht, I think they only lost 1 or 2 lineouts. But the quality of ball that they got from their lineouts it wasn't good enough. And when they did get it right, Libbok punished Connacht with his gameplay. So yeah, I think it's what I found really intriguing about this match is that. The Munster manufacture opportunities by keeping the ball in hand, taking it through multiple phases, stretching the defense, that kind of thing, where the Stormers will snap on you in a second and be ruthless with anything. Like we can put it down to counter-attack, but it's not necessarily all the time counter-attacking play. It's just instinctive play that is not really pre-planned, or if it is pre-planned, they sort of catch the opposition unawares. So, yeah, I think a great way to sort of highlight that is that Manie had 3 carries against in semi-finals against Connacht. He had 3 carries, made 24 meters, and assisted 2 tries. I mean, the guy barely touched the ball all game, and then when he did touch the ball, he assisted 2 tries and had 2 clean breaks. Like it's just ridiculous. Like you can only, it's like preparing to make sure that Richie McCaw is not going to turn over the whole time, and you stop him from doing it for 75 minutes, and then you let it go because he hasn't done it the whole game, and then he comes up with 4 turnovers in the last 5 minutes of the game. It's
yeah. You can't stop certain things, I think.
No, exactly.
There's only so much that they can do. And yeah, I think the interesting thing also just from the previous Stormers Munster game is Munster really, it seemed like, focused on having a quick start. Like they were, they got a try in the first minute, and then they were 12-0 up by the end of the first quarter. So, and the Stormers, I think they also tried to be a quick starting type of team, but they're also quite comfortable, especially at home, to really come back and really build momentum in the game as well. So they don't really let, a deficit phase them. But I think it's going to be, if Munster falls behind, if the Stormers do a Leinster and get like 15, 17 points up in the first 20 minutes, I don't know if Munster can win. But if Munster gets a bit of a lead going, I think that could be, something. I'm sure I think the Stormers have a better chance, but yeah, I think that will be quite decisive. So I think Munster needs a quick start in this game.
Yeah, and I think there's been quite a few games over the season where the Stormers have had soft periods, and if they have that soft period, and Munster are extremely profitable in that soft period, it could be the deciding facet of the game or period of the game. Like we saw while the Stormers finished against Connacht, but they did have patches in that game where you thought maybe Connacht could actually come back and surprise us. Like you weren't completely uncomfortable by it, but you were like, it could happen. It could happen. And I think it's not like if we were playing Leinster this weekend, we would be saying, if this happens to this, if the Stormers have that period, they will lose this match. I think if they do it against Munster, there's a pretty good chance as well. So you're not going to be able to put together a perfect 80-minute performance, but you need to make sure that 10 minutes before that 10-minute stint, you're not leaking 3 tries or 2 tries, maybe just the one.
Yeah. Do you think Munster might have a better bench than the Stormers? Because they'll probably have, we talked about Casey and Healy and Earls, Kenderlin also coming off the bench. Those are fantastic players. Like you can't really go wrong with them. I'm wondering, and I mean, the Stormers bench isn't, horrible by any means. Like, having the likes of Nettling Forshire coming in, and Dixon and Engelbrecht, and probably Paul de Wet, and either probably Clayton Blommetjies as well. I think Munster might, the first 15, I think the Stormers have the edge, but I think Munster has the edge now with their bench.
I think you might be right, especially like you say, that they'll probably drop like John Hodnett from the starting lineup to get Achia back in there. So he comes in, and Byrne will probably move into the second row once when he comes off the bench with Kenderlin or Hodnett coming on. So I think they might have a slight edge. Like I don't think it's clear that one side's like majorly better than the one bench is majorly better than the other. But I think Munster do have the slightest of edge. Like I'm talking about Hodnett dropping to the bench for Munster, but Engelbrecht is going to drop to the bench for the Stormers. And yeah, Engelbrecht had a phenomenal game in the semi-finals. He made something like 23 tackles or something like that, and in 60 minutes, like he had a phenomenal game. So yeah, I think like round off by saying that I do think Munster are marginally better there, but the Stormers don't have the superstar names, but they've got the guys that can get the job done.
Yeah. Jared, before we get into serious predictions, let's try to make a bit of a few random predictions for the game. So we saw now that last year the Stormers in their medal presentation did the probably world-class thing of having young kids present the medals to them, and that was an amazing moment. And you had like the players like bend to their level and all that sort of stuff. Like that was fantastic. I'm wondering if they sort of take that a few other steps now. I wonder if they have like, walk out with kids like as they get out the tunnel. They maybe have like kids like do something in the halftime, like entertainment as well. Like, there's one way of getting, the sympathy of the crowd is that you have kid performers and all that sort of stuff. So I'm sure that might be something that happens. And the other one is obviously, Tina Turner's just passed away. So I'm assuming that whoever wins, the song that'll be played is simply the best.
It's got to be, hey? It surely is got to be. Like, although I say it's got to be, but Thala, we know that all the South African DJs at these stadiums just constantly play Sweet Caroline every fucking time. So that might be the winning song that's bolted out in Cape Town. But if you're the stadium DJ at DHL Stadium, please do not play Sweet Caroline the whole game, and simply the best when the team's about to lift the title. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah. And then what do you think the Peter Manie sledge for this weekend will be? Probably something about Joe Gleber's comment about effing up Munster.
Yeah. You'll probably just. I thought you were going to F us up in like the first minute after his like. I'm not like I wouldn't be surprised if Omani like bounces to Weber like once and then like goes straight down and says, "I thought you're going to F us up," and you'll probably shout it loud enough that we can get it on the referee's mark, hopefully. But Omani will definitely be throwing out some sledges after that one, and I hope that Weber's going to back up his comments, and he does back them up. We can be a bit biased on this one.
Yeah, who is the Stormers lead sledger? Is it? I think it's
Marvin Orie,
or maybe
with Marvin Orie.
Is it Orie? Yes, of course.
Don't you remember that one game? It was brilliant. The Bulls got a penalty. Mornay Steyn took it quickly, and the referee didn't like that. But as Steyn was running back, Orie was about to tackle him, and as he turned around to run back, Orie just scooped the ball out of his hands, and like he's a shithouse all the time. I mean, the last time they played against Munster, now he put his hands over Omani's eyes. Some say it was gouging. I don't think there was any gouging in it, but he put his hands over Omani's eyes, so the rage couldn't get there. But yeah, Orie's definitely the chief sledger at the Stormers.
Oh goodness! So the Orie Omani competition to see who's going to get away with the most shithousery is going to be fantastic, probably.
There's also the prospect of Herschel Yankees and Conor Murray going up against each other again. Ooh. I don't know if you remember from the Third Lions series in 2021 after the Bucks won it. Herschel Yankees went right up into Conor Murray's face and shouted and screamed, celebrating in his face. So I think that one might be spicy.
Yeah, and I even Herschel against Casey will be interesting because both of them are small little goblins. I think they do have that characteristic in them. So I think there'll be a lot of chat in the ref mic. And Andrea Pirardi has his work cut out, because there'll definitely be a lot of let's call it helpful suggestions from the two teams as to what he should do.
No, exactly. And luckily Johnny Sexton isn't there to berate him at halftime and full time. So you can be pretty sound that he should be okay with most of his decisions.
We are still waiting for that Sexton and O'Gara video to drop, because I can only imagine what was being said there, and it's going to be fantastic television. I wish Netflix was filming that match instead of the Six Nations, actually.
Imagine somewhere down the line, O'Gara becomes the British and Irish Lions head coach, and decides, no, you need somebody to really challenge him in his coaching box, and gets Sexton. Like the behind the scenes documentary of that would just be fucking fantastic. Like the two of them, like they hated each other when they first started out at in Munster versus Leinster, but then when Sexton went into the Ireland camp, like there's no love lost there, I don't think.
Yeah, I saw someone on Twitter saying that, look, they've become better friends now because they were together at Racing, and like it seems like for all reports, like they're a lot more friendly to each other. Even the wives get on with each other. But even Sexton during the after the Six Nations, he was interviewed in Good, Bad and Rugby, and he was asked about taking over from Ronan's points record for the Six Nations, and he basically mentioned that, like, Ronan's not going to be too happy about it. And it does, I think there's still at least some form of level of rivalry between those two. So I'm sure, and I'm sure there's going to be because Sexton just gives me the vibes of someone that's going to be a coach in rugby, and probably really good.
Is. Yeah.
So imagine having O'Gara, O'Connell, and Sexton as the coaching team.
It would be fucking mad. I mean, they're saying that Sexton will be going into a position in the Leinster coaching staff at the end of the season already. So, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, they did something pretty similar with O'Brien as well. Sean O'Brien, he's just joined the team. So, yeah, I don't know quite how he fits in, but you can see how the way Sexton operates, he's definitely going to be a head coach or an assistant coach at least. And, it would be good value to see them, Leinster versus Munster. The head coaches would be great.
No, a random aside, Ron Nell's probably the most coachiest rugby player in South Africa right now. Like, he just seems like he's also going to be a world-class coach when he retires.
He's got a face of a coach as well, like your high school PE teacher kind of face.
You're so right, actually. I never thought of that, but you're actually on point there.
Yeah, but it's taken nothing away from... It's not a slight, but he definitely does look like it.
No, that is fantastic. No, he definitely gives that vibe off as well. No, there's going to be a lot of matchups. There's going to be some interesting chat and banter. Munster also must be sick of South Africa somewhat, because this is their third visit now, South Africa, in the last 2 months.
Yeah, Peter O'Mahony, his wife, better be looking after his garden, because otherwise there's going to be hell when he gets back, regardless of the results in Cape Town.
No, I mean, actually, we probably should have asked Peter to maybe take care of the grass here in South Africa in the Cape Town Stadium. He probably could have done something there.
Yeah, I think his green finger would have been able to sort it out proper.
Okay, Jared, we've delayed this long enough. Now we need to commit ourselves to some predictions. But before we talk about this match, let's very quickly talk about the Premiership Final you quickly mentioned. Saracens versus Sale, Ford versus Farrell, part 400, all the narratives. Secunda Sharks against the Saracens, or South African Saracens, whatever you want to call it. There's at least some South African interest in this game. Where do you think this game's going to go?
You know what? I did my prep for this preview that will be up on Planet Rugby at some stage, but I found it incredibly difficult to call. And I think the two packs are reasonably well matched, and then the backlines are the same, and like it just sort of comes down on who has the better game or who gets the upper hand and gets momentum, and if the other fly half in particular is able to swing it. So I think it will be heavily reliant on Ford versus Farrell, and we can snore about that all we want. It is that like it's going to come down to that, and overall, I just think that Saracens just have too many guys that have been there in finals, done it, won it in the Champions Cup, in the Premiership, and for Sale, they haven't been in a final for 17 years, and they do have some players like Ford that have been there and done that, but I just don't think they have enough of them, and winning playoff rugby and finals, especially the tight ones, it's a learning curve, and it doesn't just happen. So I'd go Saracens by a score, 3 points, 4 points.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit more. I mean, Saracens also quite angry from last season. They didn't really do well in the Champions Cup this season. Yeah, I think this is the Farrell, Itoje, George masterclass of, hey, England fans, I know you want us out, but we're still the best players that you have by a long shot. But I can see a heroic. Yeah, sorry.
I think it could go that way, but the only reason I didn't say that is Sale have the best defense in the Premiership. So things can get out of hand, but when you're coming up against the best defense in any competition, it takes a lot to really flatten them like that. But I do agree with you. It could go that way.
Yeah, look, I'm just sales in that category of teams, and fortunately maybe Leicester has to join them in. I'm not going to believe them in like a big knockout game until I see it. So yeah. Unfortunately, them's the rules for Sale. I've been sort of burnt before by, look, the Sale team's looking good, Dupree's looking good, etc., etc. And then they don't really produce. So I am gonna probably go. I'm gonna go Sale, and I think it's going to be relatively comfortable. It might be the last. Saracens. It might be comfortable. Also, might be the last final in Twickenham for a while. Apparently, that's something that the Premiership is looking at, which is interesting. I wonder then where the finals will be, like in soccer stadiums.
Yeah, you would have to think so. This game could have quite easily been played at Old Trafford or something like that. Premiership season's just ended. It's quite possible. Premier League season is just ended. So they could go to one of that, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They've had quite a few rugby matches there, so I think it would be a nice change. I think you sort of see. Imagine if we had to play the game at the Aviva this weekend as well. It would also be a bit of a dower. So I think it's nice to maybe take the game to other parts of England, but it's a conversation for another time, I suppose.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, and then the main event for us, the URC Final, Stormers trying to go for the double, and Munster, continuing their party pooper reputation. Jared, where do you think this is going to go?
Yeah, so I was hoping to maybe see the lineups before we did predictions, and we're doing this before the lineups are announced. But I think the Stormers just win it. I really do. I think it can get out of hand in the last 10 minutes, and they could score 2 or 3 quick tries as the toll of all the travel and everything comes to a close for Munster. But I do think it's going to be a ferocious battle, ferocious game. Lots of big hits. But yeah, I want to go 3 points to the Stormers. But also, again, it could quite easily go into a double-digit score, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one. Everything in me says it should be the Stormers. I think the Stormers have been the better team over the season. The Stormers have a very good defense. They are obviously great in the counter-attack. Manie Libbok is not missing. Going for posts, and the Storms have a great set piece. So those things point to, one team winning. And even it's not going to rain, which maybe would have been an advantage for Munster. But yeah, it seems like on Saturday it's going to be clear for the day. Thank goodness. But phew, there's something about Munster, man. There's just something that
do you know what it is
making me very scared.
I think it's like the Springboks in 2019 that they were just incredibly difficult to beat. And they weren't like overly convincing in their victories. They were just difficult to defeat, and they clinched it at the end. So I think that's sort of where that feeling comes from. And I don't think it would be shocking if either side won this game.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, and please do not kill me, people of Cork, if you see me on Saturday. Stormers by about 5, but if Munster wins, I am not at all surprised, and I can definitely see like Peter Manie lifting the trophy or Todd Byrne and Peter Manie doing like a last minute turnover to secure it. Like it's more than possible. So I would probably go Stormers by a little bit.
I think that's fair. I think we've pretty much gone the same route with it, and we both think it's going to be tight in the end. So
yeah. As I was saying to someone on Twitter, look, as a Bulls fan, I can't really lose this weekend. Either I can tease Munster fans and Ireland people and Irish people and say, "Oh, you guys look shaky before the World Cup," or I can give it back to the Stormers people and say, like, you choked a final at home. So either way, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. No, I'm just stoked for a big clash, and like I say, I think it's a lot more enticing than what we're getting in the Premiership this weekend. And if the Champions Cup was a pretty damn good curtain raiser for the URC this weekend, so let's go.
Yeah, look, if it's 90% or 80% of the quality of the Champions Cup final, we are in for an amazing game on Saturday. Yeah, Jared, I think let us wrap it up here. I think I think we've covered almost all bases. This is our preview pod for this weekend's game. Yeah, hopefully you'll get it during the course of Friday or late on Friday, so you can listen to it. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to the Rugby Bits podcast. We'll obviously be back early next week to review the game and to talk about how the two big finals happening. And yeah, we'll also just wrap up from like what's happening in the top 14 and the Super Rugby, and start to slowly but surely turn our eyes towards the big tournament that's happening September and October. Jared, thank you so much. All the best.
Thanks,
you are actually, you're going to be in South Africa in a few days, right?
Yeah. Coming in on Monday. So right after the game, pretty much the next day after the game, after the weekend's games, I'll climb on the flight and head home.
Perfect. Yeah. So hopefully Jared will be coming into a parade in Cape Town. And yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please follow us on the Rugby Bits page on Twitter and all the social media channels, and like, share, and subscribe this podcast with the Rugby World. Thank you.